Welcome back to the Nest, peeps. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the War Machine Mark IV Preview Battlegroup boxes. And in my case, the Orgoth. Now, I ordered this box the moment that they went on sale, and it just so happens that the Orgoth boxes were the ones that were shipped out first. So I've had my hands on this box for a little while now. This video is not only going to go into what comes in the box, but I'm also going to go into how I went about magnetizing the jacks that come with your battle group. And I want to give a special shout out to Alberto D'Agostino, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, for hooking me up with his old Blue Sky microphone. He reached out to me after my last video and offered to donate it to me because he had no further use for it. So this is going to be the first video with that voiceover upgrade. But that's enough of that. Let's dig into this box and check out some Orgoth. First off, I want to apologize for that cricket sound you're hearing if I'm not able to edit it out in post. This cricket can't find it, but it really wants to be heard, so carry on, Senor Cricket. So two things come in this box here, one of those being this little cylinder here, and this has our magnets in it. So this is pretty cool that they do provide the magnets for you. And then of course we have the coup de grace here, the Mark IV Battlegroup box. Pretty nondescript as far as the army that's inside the box, it just says War Machine Mark IV. And see here I am opening up the box and it looks like everything is nicely bubble wrapped for us. That's nice. It doesn't look like there's anything on this other half of the box here. It's just filler cardboard, so this box really could have been half the size that it is. But here we are. Now it is finally time to get this party started. Let's break into this bubble wrap and see what we have. Looks like inside we have three smaller bubble wrapped parcels here. This first little parcel here is Horosh the Thousand Wraths, our caster. Now I'm taking my timing and being a little extra gentle while I'm opening up these bubble wrapped parcels here. I don't want to snap off any of the little resin bits on this model. Now first thing I noticed as being someone who's never worked with 3D printed models before is you can tell difference straight from when you pick it up when you're feeling it. The detail seems to be pretty crisp as I'm turning around and I'm looking at all the little crevasses of this guy. And then over here we have this cool, awesome, spiky little backpack. Nothing seems to have snapped off, so awesome. And here we have the head. As you can see, there's some pretty crisp detail in here, and it is indeed an awesome looking head. And then over here, last but not least, we have the sword, which is pretty friggin' awesome. You can see it's got these little faces in it in the middle here, so this is definitely going to be one of the focal points of the model. And here we have the first of the jacks, the Jackal. As with the last model opening this up, I'm taking my time trying to avoid snapping any of these resin bits. And oh boy, are there a lot of bits. And right away, one of the first thing I notice is that I have two copies of the upper portion of the chassis for the Jackal. Upon further inspection, it looks like this chassis on the right here has some nicks on the undercarriage, so maybe they caught that in quality control and threw the left one in extra just to kind of head the complaint off at the pass per se. And since we have so many bits in this bag, I gotta take a moment to kind of sort through everything. So I'm putting all of the right arms on the left, and I'm putting all the left arms on the right here, because the way that they would fit onto the actual chassis. As I'm going through all these bits, I'm taking the moment to look a little extra carefully and observe all these little details that are on all these little arms and extra weapon options. I'll place the shoulder pads over here somewhere just so that they're kind of represented. And then here we have all the different heads, which are pretty awesome. On the Jackal, they all kind of look a little similar, so I wouldn't worry too much about WYSIWYG as far as the heads are concerned. And then last but not least, we have the legs here. And then that completes everything that comes in the pack for the Jackal. And last but not least, we finally get to open up the Tyrant. We're going to take just as much care with this package as we did with the other ones, and hopefully we don't break anything. Let's dump everything out on the table here. Here we have the upper body to the chassis, and this thing's pretty awesome looking. It's got all these spikes here. I don't see any kind of slips or issues at first glance, so let's put that up here. And also the 50mm base. And now let's begin the arduous task of sorting through all of our bits and making sure everything's here. This shield gun right here is pretty awesome, but I have a feeling we're gonna have an issue with the magnetization on that thing. It's got some weight behind it. No, I don't completely remember what all of the weapon options for the Tyrant are, but that's clearly a chainsaw arm, so that's pretty badass. And then here we have a lobster claw. So the Tyrant is like on the A track to becoming my new favorite jack, and this little claw here has a lot to do with that. This gun here looks like it could be a flamethrower of some sort. Here we have what appears to be a little mini railgun. I'm sure that's going to go ahead and do a lot of damage. And then I believe these little bits here go with this arm piece. It's the flail. So here's the arm with the handle to the flail. Here is the chain that goes into the hilt here, like this, and then you have the business end of the flail over here, and this goes on to the chain like this. So all three parts together, and you have this big flail that is probably big damage. And here we have the legs to the Tyrant. I gotta say, I'm a big fan of this whole Hooven Jack vibe that the Tyrant's got going on. It's definitely unique. And then last but not least, over here we have all of the different heads. This head here reminds me of a troll from World of Warcraft. This head's pretty awesome with the blade on top and the horns. Here we have like a crazy mohawk blade head, which is pretty awesome. It's probably one of my favorite heads so far. Here we have another head with horns on it, although this one just screams tank to me for some reason. And here we have the hips and loincloth to the Tyrant. As you can see, the legs kind of slide in just right here like this, right where the joints meet each other. And then I'll put the hips right up here like this, and there you have it. That's everything that you get with the Tyrant. There are a lot of bits that come with each of these jacks, and one of the things that I can't help but kind of worry about is transportation and storage of all these weapon options and not losing anything. All in all, the way that these pieces look, everything looks solid. You can see some layer lines in some places, but I'm hoping once this gets primed up, that's not going to be an issue anymore. I did get that second chassis to the Jackal, which makes me think that they've upped their quality control for these preview boxes, because one of the chassis did have some nicks on the underbelly. Nothing crazy or major, but it does look like they replaced that for me with one that didn't have those nicks. Now that we've looked at everything that comes in the box, let's pivot over to magnetization. I'm going to use the Tyrant to show you how I went about magnetizing the weapon options. One of the things you definitely want to be sure of when you're magnetizing anything is your polarity, and I do that by keeping my magnets stacked so I can keep track of exactly that. To be absolutely honest, when it comes to setting down this first magnet, the polarity doesn't really matter. Just plop a magnet in there, and then you'll make sure that you keep the polarity the same for everything from this point moving forward. Just be mindful, these magnets are small and can be kind of a pain in the butt to work with if you have bigger hands like myself. And then once I have the magnet placed, I'll come in with a Q-tip and I'll really clean it out in there, because I don't want any extra glue to dry up and keep me from getting a good seal on any of our magnetized options. Now, the first thing I do is I make sure I have my magnets placed in all of the portions of the model before I go into magnetizing the bits. So first I'll magnetize the chassis left arm, then the head, then I'll magnetize the right arm, and then I will give that a moment to dry. I want to make sure that all of the magnets that I'm placing into the chassis are completely 100% dried before I start magnetizing the options. And the reason for that is because, as you can see here, I need to use the chassis to be able to check my polarity for the arm and head options. And this is the easiest way to go about doing that with the least probability of a fuck up. First thing we do is do a little dabby of glue into this arm socket. Then, keeping our polarity in mind, we take off one of the magnets from the end of our stack that we have attached to the chassis. This is so we can keep track of which end is to be pointed outward. Once we have it placed, we push it down to make sure the magnet is flush in the socket. And then we come in with our Q-tip, cleaning up any excess glue so we don't have any kind of crusty glue gumming up the works with our magnet connections later while we're swapping out our weapon options. And as you can see here, I had to reset my magnet after I pulled it out testing the polarity. Over here on the right arm, we're going to do the exact same thing. We have our stack of magnets stuck into the chassis, letting us know which end to glue into the arm. As last time, first things first, let's get our glue into the arm socket and place it down over here. Then we pick up the chassis, and then we remove a magnet from our chassis, keeping track of which face is pointed outward. And if at any time you forget which end was facing outward, you can always just plop it right back onto the stack, pull it back off, and make sure you pay attention this time to which end is which. And then we take that magnet and we slide it into our handy dandy arm slot right here. Then I find a tiny little tool or a stick or something, and we use this to push that magnet flat into the recess that's provided. Once everything was dry, the first thing I wanted to test out was the shield because of how heavy it was. Now, as I was shaking it, the shield was loose and didn't really connect tightly to the chassis. This is primarily due to the excess resin that is left surrounding the magnet itself. This is preventing the magnet from getting a clean connection with the magnet that's in the chassis socket. However, as you can see here, that's a pretty simple fix. All we do is we come in and we trim down that excess resin. And now that that excess is gone, you can see how much better this shield connects to the chassis. Now, I figured I was only going to have to do this for the shield because of its weight. However, I did have to trim down just about every single option for the Tyrant because nothing really connected smoothly. I know the intention for that extra bit of resin there was so that it would lock the arm in place with the magnets, where in actuality what it's doing is it's preventing the magnets from getting a tight and secure bond. Once you're done cleaning everything up though, you have a fully functional Tyrant with swappable parts. Here, I'll swap through some of the parts so you can get a look at what this jack looks like with different things on it. The claw standing strong is my favorite weapon option aesthetically. Swap on a gun just to see what it looks like. Take this head off, put another head on, looking pretty cool. Let's take this flail off and check out some of the options for this side. I really like this harpoon. I think I'm going to have fun with this. This harpoon with the claw seems like it would be a pretty awesome combination. Let's not neglect the railguns. Let's see what that looks like on there. It's a lot of pew pew right there. Put the claw back on. Oh, extra claws. Now he really looks like a crab or a lobster of some sort. And then here are some close-up photos of everything so you can get a closer look of everything completely assembled. And there you have it, the Orgoth Preview Battlegroup box for War Machine Mark IV. There's everything that comes in it and how to go about magnetizing your new little dollies. It's going to take some getting used to working with this new 3D printed resin. As someone who doesn't own a 3D printer and has never worked with a 3D printed model before, it was definitely a step out of my comfort zone working with this material. When I'm working with the traditional materials that we work with like plastics, other resins, and metals, when you're cleaning up the model, things tend to cut a little bit smoother. Yeah, you can chunk sometimes if you're not paying attention, but for the most part, it's a smooth cleanup process. With this 3D printed resin, I noticed that it was very brittle, and sometimes I would chunk out more than I really intended to when I was cleaning up different areas. I know that one of the upsides that is touted for the 3D printing is that there's going to be less cleanup. Now, it's not that there's less cleanup, it's just different kinds of cleanup. Like now I have to look all over the model to see any kind of little supports that might be still stuck there, and I have to decide whether that's a support or a rivet, and hopefully I don't chunk out any detail. Whereas with our traditional mediums, you had that dreaded mold line. So it's not that there is less cleanup, it's that there's different cleanup. But from my perspective, you have the same amount of cleanup time as you would with the other types of any other type of model. It's not a positive or a negative for me. It's just cleaning up the models. Remember to check out the Robbins Nest Studios Discord server. Over there you can hang out with the rest of the peeps and we can talk hobby. Swing on in and say hello. And again, thank you to Alberto for that blue sky microphone. I really do appreciate it. And with that, I have got to fly. I will catch you in the next video. And as always, keep on painting, peeps.